welcome to another episode of Hold My Cutter. We're coming your way, as always, from Burn by Rocky Patel. We're just a few blocks down from PNC Park here on the north side in Pittsburgh. I swear to you,
hey,
I've had
like
one
side,
sip of our coffee here at Burn by Rocky Patel. That is the truth. But our guest this episode has suggested, and what a job she did, the LB1. It stands for Latrobe Bucko 1. Rocky Patel LB1 is named from the codes used in the factory during the creation of the cigar. Medium-bodied smoke rolled in Honduras. The tobacco blend includes Ligero from the Jamastran Valley of Honduras, a mix of fillers from Condega and Esteli, Nicaragua, grown at Patel's farm, Rocky Patel's farm, the LB1. And why?
Hey, hold on.
Yep.
I got it. First, I thought it was a Bednar, but it's the bazooka. It's the O'Neill Cruz.
It's the bazooka.
Look at this thing.
Yeah.
This is the O'Neill Cruz version. Thank you, Hannah, for calling
Mears,
O'Neill.
by the way, in case you haven't guessed, if you're watching, you knew right away who it was. The lovely Hannah Mears is our guest on Hold My Cutter. We begged her for a year plus to try and join us, and we finally convinced her. She said, only if I can smoke the LB1.
Only if.
And you know she ran a marathon to get here. This is just a stop.
Really? She's on her way
she's
back
got
to
another
Latrobe.
Marathon after this to get home. Yeah.
Why Latrobe? Why do we say Latrobe? For those who don't know, that is the home of Hannah Mears.
Latrobe, Pennsylvania.
I said Latrobe, not Latrobe.
Latrobe?
Latrobe.
Is
I
that
feel
French?
like it's like if you went to the high school in Latrobe, you say Latrobe.
Yeah.
Anywhere outside of it, you say Latrobe.
So Hannah,
it's just a preference.
It's been an age-old question for those of us who've not been born and raised in Latrobe or Latrobe. We've always wondered, do you look down upon someone not from Latrobe saying Latrobe as if they are Latrobians?
No, I feel like I always tell people to say Latrobe because then it's like you pretend like you fit in. You know?
Really?
You
So
pretend
do you
like
know
fit in a
someone's
little
not
bit.
from there if they say it wrong?
Yeah, yes and no. I feel like it's just a preference thing. You
Gotcha.
can tell, though, maybe if somebody really is, like, if someone says Latrobe, you're like, oh, you're probably from there. But if they say Latrobe, it's a toss-up. It's like, okay, well, you could be, you couldn't be,
So
I don't
people
know.
from Latrobe will say Latrobe.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think
okay,
it just
wow.
rolls off the tongue
She dropped
sometimes.
a little bit of Tennessee on the last one. A little bit of Tennessee.
Little bit.
Latrobe?
Says the Tennessee boy.
Latrobe.
Says the Tennessee boy. How did Hannah Mears? Hannah Mears, of course, is not only a Pirate Sideline reporter. She's been way more than that, but we've gotten to know Hannah because she just does an incredible job as the Pirate Sideline reporter.
She killed it this year.
I
didn't
mean, she really did, and we've said this when Hannah's not been with us. We've talked to so many others about it. I guess I've not told you this, Hannah. I've told you, I think you're really good.
Thank you,
But
Greg.
I didn't tell you how surprisingly good you have been. It's.
Thank you.
I mean, I thought you'd be good, but I've told people this, like, I
was
cannot.
skeptical of you, kid.
I was, but
Can I add to that, since Dave is no longer with us? God rest your soul.
Dave
He's not dead. He just decided to do something different.
Jeez, oh, man.
So he's
no
worked.
longer- yes,
but no,
right, Dave
he's
Ricchini
worked
is-
dead to us, but
Yeah.
his soul exists. But he called me. I was supposed to interview with you guys. Supposed to help facilitate the
Boss
interview.
man.
I had to go to the fantasy camp. I love it. But he said, you didn't just kill it. You blew everybody away. That it was literally no question, because you went in as the outlier. Oh, the Pittsburgher, we'll give her a chance. Literally, that's what they were saying.
Dang.
I got to hear a little bit of this, and you went in, and the way you were prepared, which that's what your gift is, and the way that you knocked it out, and your knowledge of and understanding of the city, they said they couldn't hire anybody else, period. So whatever you did there, which is probably just what she did all year, you killed it.
Well, thank you. It was like the most intimidating thing in a way. It was the first time I had really ever had to go and audition for something like that, which was terrifying, and I knew absolutely nothing, like, in terms of what to expect, like how to prepare, things like that. So when they gave me
And
a
they don't
glimpse
help
of,
you.
and they don't help you because they don't want to
Yeah,
help
they
you.
don't
They
wanna
have a
help you.
producer when you get there that'll help you, but once I sat with the producer, they were like, oh yeah, this looks good. I was like, okay, well, hopefully this will work. But I thought I was going to have to host an hour-long show in my audition, and I thought I was going to have to actually, like, really pretend to interview someone, which I did, but I was giving, I guess at one point in the interview, giving, like, storylines for the season, right, where different things could be, like, an in-game report and things like that. And so I had to give an in-game report, and they were like, you don't have to like memorize that. You can look down. This whole night before, I memorized everything.
Did you really?
I was ready to go because I didn't know I was going to be able to use my notes, because typically, I don't know, any setting I've been, I always don't want to look down at notes. I want to memorize. I want to be knowledgeable. I want to have everything there for me. So yeah, it was kind of a crazy process, but they give you nothing. When you're done, you're like, well, I hope I did good. I have no idea. No one's giving me anything, but I just wanted to go in so over-prepared. I never want to be under-prepared. I wanted to be over-prepared. I wanted to show my knowledge. I wanted to impress them more than just the job itself being a dream job, but because I care about Pittsburgh, right? Like, I'm from Pittsburgh, so it meant a lot to me that, you know, some people might not be fans of the Pirates, but I was, and I am, and that meant a lot to me that it's represented in the best way possible, and the stories are being told, and that they're, you know, you can tell them with your soul and your passion. And so I went in and I was like, well, all I can do is be myself. They're either gonna love me or hate me, and that's what I went in with. That's what I went in with the intentions, and it worked out.
You went and prepared for an hour. I mean,
So-
you prepared.
Oh, wait till you hear it.
Yeah.
She's not sharing one thing. Who'd you call?
So you mean like to prepare for the interview?
Yeah,
Mitch.
talk about what you did to prepare for
So-
this, and then I'll explain
Yeah.
what I did. And we both did something unique. Mine was the exact opposite of yours.
Oh, that's funny.
Because I'm a
I
baseball
think,
guy.
is it with Mitch? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
So they picked the game.
Yeah, so essentially what they do is, okay, so rewind a little bit. I had a little bit of ties with the Pirates the year before. I had done their social media reporting. So anytime we would go to a community event, I would sort of just, you know, do the social media videos. So I had made connections with some of the players and the personnel and things like that. So when I found out I was getting the audition, which Mitch Keller had found out too, like there was a couple of players who had, or people, you know, just the hearsay of, oh, I heard you might be up for this type of thing. He said, if there's anything you ever need, like, let me know. And so I felt weird asking, because it's just like a weird thing, but I was like, hey, I found out the game I'm supposed to be pretending I'm doing happened to be, you know, a game where he was going to be coming off a game pitching really well, I think, or something along those lines. And so I said, can I send you a couple of questions to answer as if I had just interviewed you? And so you could give me direct quotes so I could use them as an in-game hit, as if it would be something new, current, and real that you would be saying. Because I didn't want to go in there and just say the same thing that everybody else probably was, which was what was on the paper. So I was like, how can I use what's available to me? And so Mitch, being so kind, because he is just an amazing
He's a great
human,
dude.
him, his wife Clancy, his whole family, like the best people, he sent me just a paragraph back about everything from like that game, gave me quotes to use. And it just meant the world to me that, you know, those people were on my side no matter what, but also just, he didn't have to go out of his way to do that, you know, and he did. And that meant so much. And I do think that made the difference, right? It might have been like
That
a
was a
30-second part of that
mic
interview,
drop.
but
Well, because who else could bring that?
No, nobody.
Yeah.
That just showed immediately she's different. She's a burger. Latrobe, how do you say that?
Yeah. Latrobe.
Latrobe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it separated her big time. Dave said when that happened, it was just like the whole room just went.
Well, it wasn't in,
Like,
was it in
wow.
Pittsburgh, Hannah, or did you go to Boston?
I had to go to Boston for that.
Really?
Yeah, I went to Boston for that. So it was essentially when you walked in, you met with the producer. I sort of said, here's what my rundown is, because you had to go host a show. So you had to host a show at the desk. I thought I was going to have to host an hour-long show. They're like, no, this is like 5 minutes. I was like, oh, okay, well, I prepared for an hour, but that's fine.
Lucky.
So it was quick, but that wasn't supposed to be like the main role anyway. And then I had to give what I would think of in-game hits. I had to have 2 of those ready, plus I had to have current storylines for the season, and then had to interview someone as if it was a post-game interview. And then went from there and then waited for like a month, it felt like.
How long was
so
it?
I can't remember the exact time, but it was
I
a
knew
couple of weeks.
It was
like
a couple
3
weeks, but it was
Yeah.
the
When you
decision
were-
was made literally that week.
When you were done,
Believe it or
Hannah,
not.
after
that
the
means a lot.
after the interview, when you were done, how confident were you that you think you nailed it?
I felt so good about what I did because I've never felt so prepared for something in my
Really?
life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I wanted that so bad. And, you know, when everybody always talks about, like, this is kind of cliche, but, like, when, you know, opportunity meets, you know, when you have an opportunity,
Circumstance.
it meets circumstance, or it meets, like, preparation, that's when, like, good things happen.
Yep.
And all
It's
I wanted to do
definition
was,
of luck.
yeah, like, go in there, be myself, and over-prepare. And I had felt like I over-prepared. Once I realized they said you don't have to memorize things, once I realized they said it's not going to be an hour, I was like, oh, I'm way over-prepared for this, and I feel so good about this. And yeah, it just, I walked out of there saying, I can confidently say I could not have done any better.
That's a
and
good
I'm
feeling.
usually my biggest critic. And I felt good about that. I said, you know what? If they don't want me, they don't want me. But I feel very proud of what I just did.
You could hang your hat on it, right?
I would have walked away, and if they didn't want me, fine. There was somebody better than me. But I felt like that was the best possible product I could have put on there. So I was very happy walking away, and I was like, well, if they don't want me, it's not in my cards. But I felt very good about it.
Is this ultimately something that you wanted to do growing up? Ultimately? Or?
No.
No.
Yes and no. I was always somebody who was really good at like public speaking. All those writing classes and English classes came
Always?
naturally to me.
So it just was a gift, and you just kept
gift
building
to
on
gab.
it?
That's what my parents always
That's
said.
awesome.
My dad was a talker. I was a talker. My older brother and my grandma, we all had the gift to gab, they called it. So could just talk always. I was the kind of person who would rather give a speech than take a test. Like I would rather write a paper or give a public speech than take a test.
No, thank you to either.
I'm like, don't give me a test, anything. I will stand there and BS till the cows come home. But that was sort of just like the skill sets I had, right? But I just thought, you never really saw that as an option growing up. You always thought you could be a doctor, a teacher, a lawyer, like the jobs that they teach you about in school. And so I love kids, and I had a passion for like taking care of people, and I till my senior year of high school thought I was going to be a nurse practitioner, and I wanted to specialize in neonatal, so I wanted to go with the babies and things like that. So
that would fit with the talking to and the personty.
The
makes sense.
neonatal nurse practitioner, that's what I wanted to
Oh my
be.
gosh.
And then when I was applying for schools and stuff, something just didn't feel right. I didn't know what it was, but it didn't feel right. And then I had always loved sports. I played 3 sports. I just never really knew you could mesh them. And then one summer I was a runner for ESPN before I was heading into Penn State.
What is a runner?
A runner is essentially someone behind the scenes who's doing whatever they need that day, from getting coffee to wrapping cables to finding random things at Lowe's that the crew needs that day. You're a runner. Going to pick people up at the airport. Like, whatever they need that day, you're the person that they're contacting for it. So when I went to Penn State, I sat through an orientation and I saw there was the communications program, and I thought, oh, something about this is me. Like, this is my personality, this is me. So I didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but I knew that's the field I should be in. And then I went that summer, shadowed ESPN when they were at Steelers training camp, and I was a runner, and I saw what they were doing, and I, right then and there, was like, this is what I need to do.
Did you have to run everywhere, by the way?
Sometimes, but they gave me a car, so I could drive too.
Oh,
which
nice,
I'm in this
nice.
like huge like Cadillac Escalade, driving around Latrobe with this coffee in my seat that I'm like, I can't spill this everywhere. It was so nerve-wracking. I was like, what if I wreck this car? It's huge. Like, can you
You're a
imagine?
college student. I know this is normal now,
Yeah.
but with the NIL, but like you're a college student in Escalade. You have
I
to feel
know.
like, what up? I'm Hannah. Right? That's cool. Like,
Also, this is so fun.
I had a Tacoma.
Are you good with that?
This is fun. No, I was terrified because I thought I was going to wreck the car.
sure,
And then
I'm
I was
sure.
like, they're never going to hire me back. This is horrible. This is a nightmare. But it was fun. It ended up being
And you
good.
didn't wreck it.
And I didn't wreck the car. And thank you guys for having me. I didn't say that, but this is fun. Gregbrown taught me how to smoke a cigar today.
Whoa. But he did not teach her how to cut it.
He
That's-
didn't.
well,
He
and-
said,
so-
hold my cutter. I'm not giving it to you. But yeah.
He held on to the cutter, and she kept
that was
saying,
the whole point.
it's not working.
She had to learn about this podcast.
Yeah, so you taught her,
Hold
you're
my
the
cutter.
veteran.
Great.
That's right.
I love
You
it.
had
It's fun.
to learn.
So
and the
real-
mugs.
And the mug of
The
coffee.
mugs. Yep.
Isn't that
She
good
has a
coffee?
latte.
I love the coffee.
Isn't
I have
that
a
a good
latte.
latte? That's a good
Vanilla
one.
latte. So sweet.
Oh, wow,
So-
that's nice.
To wrap that story up, the way I did mine, and I was the exact opposite of you.
Mm-hmm.
I was scared to talk in front of people. I had learning disabilities. I hated taking tests. Was told I was dumb. And now I'm on TV. It's cool.
Now look at you.
Yeah, it's really, really neat. And I
Awesome.
think my wonderful wife, communications major, she wanted to do what I'm doing to a certain extent. She took a shift. I took a shift. But when I did mine, they sent me the DVD like 3 weeks before. J.A. hit a walk-off homer against Rich Hill in the 10th.
You got a DVD?
Yeah, so I didn't watch it. No, I didn't watch
Cheater.
it. My interview was at 8 o'clock.
When you were talking, I was going to
Hold
say
on.
cheater about your stuff. But
Wait,
Mitch,
wait,
That was my thought. You said opportunity. And she, I'm thinking like
Hey,
cheater.
hold your cutter for 1 minute. I didn't cheat. I woke up at 6 o'clock. I think my interview, I thought I said 8. It was probably 10. Woke up at 6. I watched the game, took notes, and got prepared for the show
Yeah,
like
you
I was
did.
doing it. Because I figured out, what's this look like? What's the schedule? How am I going to do it? So I knew the talking points, and I put it down, and I walked in, left my notes, and did the interview. So I did the opposite. I didn't prepare before. I waited so I was reacting to the game, and it was so fresh and so real. And they were like, dude, I know I'm high energy, but I was passionate about it because I hadn't seen that game since Jay Hay did it, and Jay Hay was a friend, and Rich Hill was a friend. So like all my enthusiasm came out at once, and they said that was the biggest separator. So like I bought into who I was just like you did, just differently. And
That's cool.
I say that because we always try to give some 2 cents. 1, be a runner, do the little things, and then 2, the fact is,
Yeah,
like,
we've talked about
do
that
it
on
your
other
way.
podcasts, Hannah, and you're such a great example of it. Love people that
Get it.
I know you've spoken to kids now, though you're
Yeah.
still a kid, but you've spoken to some, I'm sure, high school, maybe college students about wanting to get into the business, and that nobody has the same path. It's different for everybody. But the one common theme is that you're willing to put in that work because you know you want something, you'll do whatever it takes. And that's kind of sounds like what you did.
Oh, 100%. My path is very all over the place with so many different backgrounds of production, of video, of editing, like kind of that one-man machine, because my generation going through college, we had to be at
Which
that
is
point
amazing.
because it's a lot. It's a lot. And I was actually just talking to someone, a college student the other day, who everybody sees where you are now, right?
Yeah.
But they forget about the path that it took. And they're like, well, I want to do what you do. How do I get to be a sideline reporter in Major League Baseball? I was like, well, it took me at least 5 years to get here, and 5 years prior to that in school.
You don't fall to the top.
You don't just all of a sudden be here. And so many people on social media, I think it gives you a false sense of a lot of things, but a false sense of success in a way too, because so
That's a
many
great
people
point.
think, oh, well, I can just do that right now because she's doing it right now. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't post the hours upon hours of things that I was doing to get to that point. And I said, when I graduated college, you know, it was hard because I was at Penn State, a Division I program, covering some of the best athletic teams in the nation for 4 years. Felt like I was here. Then you graduate college, those opportunities are gone. I graduated in the middle, like as soon as COVID became a thing, so I had no job opportunities available.
It made me feel old. A little.
Yeah,
You.
right?
There we
That
go
may feel
again. Back to that again.
I'm substitute teaching in a school to make money and sidelining high school football games. You know, you're making $30, $50, and it wasn't even a point of the money. I just wanted the opportunity to keep building myself, and that kind of stuff not everybody's willing to do because it's not glamorous. No, like you're not making a lot of money. It is a lot of hard work. You're sitting there sometimes thinking like, what am I doing? But at the same time, like if you love it, that's going to teach you if you really love it or if you want to do it for the wrong reasons. And I can confidently say I'm in this because I love it, or else I wouldn't have done any of that.
Absolutely.
You know, I had just as much joy covering a middle school wrestling match that
That's
I do
awesome.
like
That's a great
standing and
story.
interviewing Andrew McCutcheon. Like it's just the people, the passion, the storytelling, and you have to love both things. You can't just only love it because you get to be on TV. Like I love every aspect of it.
And so, one, I tell kids all the time, it takes what it takes. It's just if you're willing to actually do it. But what type of perspective did that give you? And when you see someone editing something you did, or someone that's producing or anything, since you've touched all of that, because it's something I believe in every business. I got that way when I was playing. I was kind of mentored to say, hey, don't miss little things. Learn it all. Figure out what the clubhouse guy does and how he does it. And it gives you a perspective and an understanding that's completely different. And you do love it differently, but you love what's done
Oh
for
my
you to
gosh.
even walk out there and do your dream.
I
right?
have so much respect for how a production comes together. It's insane because I was the runner who was just standing in the background trying not to be too noticed in a way and make sure things are happening the right way for the people who are putting this together. I have so much respect for the producers behind the scenes who are trying to find the storylines, put the show together, make sure things are flowing properly, because I did that. Like at KDK for a few years, I was a sports producer, and I mean, it's a grind because you're worried about the timing, you're worried about stories, you have to make something happen every day, even if things are slow. I was, have so much respect for videographers. I had to carry around those heavy cameras. I'm a little person, and you're standing on the sidelines, and it's rainy, it's cold, it's whatever it
Bazooka.
is, it's hot, and you still have to get the shot, and it's intimidating sometimes. Like if you don't get that shot, that's it. Like you missed it. And so you have a certain level of respect for that. And the people, the audio, I was at Oregon the other day covering a football game. This is crazy. I'm at Oregon covering a football game. Oregon beats Ohio State, right? This is number 2 and number 3 in the country. This is like one of the biggest games of the year in the Big Ten. The Big Ten sends me to cover it, which is such an honor and a privilege to begin with. But NBC's the actual broadcast. I'm just covering pre and post game. So NBC gets priority of those post game interviews. So I'm standing beside where NBC is to get Dan Lanning after the win. And there's a field rush of the fans because Oregon beats Ohio State. It's a huge win. You know, Oregon skyrockets to the ranks number 1 in like the nation, all these things. I'm standing there, my cord for my microphone, the XLR cable like this is hooked into the microphone. My audio guy's here, my camera guy's here, and I'm bodying people, like my elbows are going because there's people rushing the field. You know, you start getting a little scared in a way.
Yeah,
It's fun, it's an exciting atmosphere, but you don't have any security. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. We have all this equipment. I'm making sure those guys are okay, but I'm also making sure that their PR guy can see me so that after NBC, I can get an interview. I'm about to go do this interview. Right before I go to do it, the cord got stuck in something and snapped in half. So this part of the cord came off. So it wasn't just it came out of the microphone, it snapped in half. So imagine like that's the one interview, you know, you're waiting for your whole life, that moment in a field storm. And that happens and you have nothing, you can't do anything about it. And I was standing there and Dan Lanning looks at me and he's like, are we gonna do this? And he wasn't, not in a rude way, like in a very like, all right, let's go kind of thing. And I looked at him, I said, Coach, I'm so sorry, we can't. Like, I can't do this. Like, it's broken. And I, at this point, want to just melt in tears because you are like, what do I do now? But then as soon as it was, I was like, I looked at my camera guy or my audio guy. I was like, you go find another XLR cable that way. So he has to go the whole way to the fields from this way. I said, we're going to follow Coach. We're going to figure out where he is. And we're going to see if we can borrow someone's cord to get this interview somewhere else. Thankfully, Dan Lanning was so kind. We went into the locker room and he ended up doing it. We found an XLR cable and he did it on the side. But that gives you so much respect for every moving part because it didn't matter how prepared I was for that interview. It didn't matter how prepared I was for that moment, like wanting that moment selfishly, but also for the Big Ten Network to be able to put that on their production. Yeah. I felt horrible because I'm like, they wanted to be able to show that. That's why I was sent there. Everyone was so kind though, being like, there's things that are out of your control. We get it. But I had so much respect for the people around me where it's like, man, if I could stand there and be as prepared as I want, but if I don't have audio, no one's going to hear it. If I don't have video, no one's going to see it. And that's the stuff behind the scenes that you just have so much respect for people.
Day in the life of live TV, right?
Yeah, it was the most intimidating and eye-opening things I've ever done. And here I am, like, feeling like I'm at the top of my game. I'm so prepared, and things like that happen, and you're, like, crying on the way home because you're just, like, I wanted to melt, you know? Because then you just feel difficult to work with all of a sudden because then you're trying to ask these PR people, you know, extra things behind the scenes. And I was like, I don't want to be difficult to work with.
How could you be difficult if the cable snapped?
You just start to feel bad asking.
I know, you feel that
you know
because
what I mean?
You're your worst critic. I'm the same way. Like, what did I do? I should have done something. You can't do anything.
Yeah, I felt horrible. That's the worst part. I felt horrible. And I wanted that moment for the Big Ten. I wanted to be able to turn on that broadcast and see when they came the field storm, like down to us, you saw that moment, you captured it, and I didn't get it, but I did the best with what I could. But it gives you a whole different perspective.
100.
And I was doing the alternate broadcast the other day for the first time, which was so fun, with Max Talbot and Matt Capps. And
now you got to explain that.
Yeah, so we have an alternate broadcast now once a month on Sportsnet Pittsburgh Plus and on the SNP 360 app, and we essentially do a format like this where we're sitting and talking. Then imagine a Pirates game happening, right? And you guys would be reacting to it, but also telling stories, having guests, incorporating fun things for the audience. But we're doing that with hockey once a month. It's really fun. But after the show, Freddie, our producer, said, have you produced before? I said, yeah. He goes, oh, I could tell because there were just certain moments where you say, hey, how about we do this because we're coming back and we're showing this shot and this story would go well.
You were able to tie it together.
Yes. And that's not to like toot my own horn by any means. That's
no,
just more.
It's real.
You can tell
it's
when
real.
people have had that because, and I value that as somebody, I think that's helped me so much in my career. Because it helps you with storytelling and it takes the things that much further and you know what shot your camera guy wants in that scenario and when this story could fit and you're not just throwing it in there. So yeah, long story short, I have so much respect for every single person behind the scenes because you can't have
you can't be Ron Burgundy.
You can't just, right? You can't,
don't put it on the prompter. He's got to say it.
Yes.
But like, we don't have prompters. But I respect that so much. You did the same thing. As I've gotten into this industry, I've done the same thing. Is like, I want to know what the director does. I want to know what everybody does so I understand it. Like the gear we use and stuff. How do I set it up? I've messed up 1,000 times. I absolutely love that. think every person should learn their entire industry so they can understand. Because if Freddie had a bad day, right, you just may have saved him because his brain's just not firing. You're like, hey, let's try this, try to do this. But then they get this fire in him, especially Freddie. I love Freddie. He'll kind of be like, no, let's go this direction and bring that in segment B in the second half. I'm like, cool. And it's like you're just firing like you're a battery. Like I'm catching him, I'm calling my own pitch, and he's like, no, let's shake this way. But he's the actual catcher, and I get to be the pitcher.
It just helps so much to know what
So
everybody
much.
does. Just helps you in your job to know what everybody
Well,
does. It
too,
just helps
I've seen you meet-
pieces of the puzzle. It just helps.
You guys are walking through the entire game plan, every single day. People don't know a lot of that stuff, and I think that's the most interesting part about this industry is every person that's been in this industry that's come on this podcast has talked about how important it was to do all the groundwork, build the foundation, because the understanding they have. It's crazy.
So, but Hannah, but you talked about your freshman year at Penn State. That's when you were a runner. But then you decided to really focus on your career. So what did you do the next 3 years at Penn State?
Yeah, so going into my freshman year, it was basically sort of right before the fall of freshman year. I was a runner that like one weekend for ESPN when they were there. I had done a couple of things. Freshman year, I was in a class with this professor, Mike Poorman. He's awesome. He's still a mentor till this day. It was like a sports business class. And I got put in it essentially, and it was a bunch of sophomores, juniors. Like it wasn't really a thing for freshmen to be put in it, but I was there that summer session. I had a good relationship with some of the advisors, and so I got to be in that class, and it changed my life because he got in. I went up to him, and this was something I always tell young people in college. I say, go talk to your professors, go meet your professors. Don't just show up to class. Make sure they know who you are because they are so well connected and they can help you so much, especially like at any university. I went to a big university and that helps just make it feel a little smaller.
What gave you that intuition to do that? Is that just who you were?
I think it's just like who I was innately as a person is I felt like this professor had so many similarities that I did in terms of we liked sports, the passion. So I was like, I want him to know who I am. Like I want to talk to him. Maybe he has advice for me because I wasn't the type of kid who grew up saying I want to be a sports broadcaster. So I knew everything I needed to do to get to that point. I really was starting from scratch. So I just went up to him. I said, hi, I'm Hannah. I'm from Latrobe, Pennsylvania. I want to do sports broadcasting and any type of advice you have for me, I'd love to know. And he knew me then from he calls me Mears, just Mears, from Latrobe all this time. He did a special class on Arnold Palmer, and he brought in Arnold Palmer iced tea for everyone one of the days.
Oh my gosh.
He was just an awesome guy. And he got an email one day that somebody from Penn State Athletics was looking for a student who could possibly be an on-camera talent, essentially, if you want to call it that, and to cover feature-y stuff within Penn State Athletics. So he had just told me I needed to answer this email and go have a meeting with this person who was Ariel Sargent at the time. And I said, okay. I thought I was just going to be like her personal assistant. Like that, I didn't know I was going to be an interview. I was like, okay, I'm just going to go sit there, tell her like I'll do anything she wants me to do. And so it took me about 3 minutes to realize like, oh, I'm being interviewed for something and I don't really know what it is.
Wow.
But she was asking me all these questions. And then afterwards I met Jim Nachman, who ended up being such a father figure to me, but a mentor and my boss eventually. And they were starting this new thing called Beaver Stadium Extra. And I was an extra, essentially covering all things on Beaver Stadium football Saturdays besides the game. So special guests that came back, former Penn State football players, like an NFL player comes in and you interview them. And that's the kind of stuff that goes up on YouTube to do more of a fan experience.
How cool.
And from there, it just grew. And now it's really cool to step away from that and see and look back and see all the students that get to do that now. Like they've split it up more so from just like one person to a bunch of students to give them real experience on camera at school. So my freshman year, I got to get all those kinks out of like the weird stuff you get to do. And so I got to get so many, I tell people all the time, it's repetition. Like you just have to put yourself in front of a camera and ask questions. And so I was so blessed to be doing that from freshman year on. But then they gave me more opportunities because I realized I didn't want to just be on camera. I wanted to know how it worked, back to like all the stuff.
Yeah.
So I stayed one summer just to learn how to video and edit. And then ironically that next fall, because I learned how to video and edit, there was an opportunity that came up and they needed someone to go cover the NFL Combine with all the Penn State athletes at the Combine. And I was the person they sent to do it because I could do all 3.
Jeez.
And so it was just, it's those things that's like weird how things work out. God works in mysterious ways, however you want to, whatever you want to call it. But
you put in the work.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
for sure.
and you were there.
Yeah,
like you were on the
kept
scene.
showing up. The question is, how many times did you say no?
Oh, none. I eventually had to teach myself that. That
I
was
didn't
one
hear you.
lesson I
None.
That was one
None.
lesson I had
Never
to teach
seen.
myself. Where someone sat me down one day and they said, Hannah, like it's okay to say no sometimes. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna kill yourself.
Right. Yeah.
But-
And
So you
so
still
we
haven't
learned
learned
that-
that yet.
No.
I think all 3 of us have that problem.
Yeah.
Of saying yes all the time, but the luxury of being able to say, that's just not for me. Mm-hmm. When you have really
get to that point.
Yeah, when you get to that point. But until then,
Well, you do get to that point where it's like, is it going to fill my cup anymore, or is it
Yeah.
just me? Because I did get to a point where I felt like I was
can't
doing a
pour
lot
from
for
that
other
empty
people,
cup. Yep.
Yeah.
but I was like, I am really spreading myself thin here, and if I can't give 100%, I don't want to give anything because I shouldn't ever shortchange somebody, right? So
and Greg does 1,000 things, but like as you get older, 1, you have family. 2, you also look at it and like, and I don't know if I could pour that much into that the way I want to, but I had to find care level. Like, all right, if I get 50%, nobody's going to beat that in my mind.
Yeah.
But that took a long time. I'm
Yeah.
39, but like
That's
at your
really
age,
hard.
I said yes to everything.
everything,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. The only thing I said no to was when Robbie asked me to go on air for Teak.
Yeah.
And Jocko said, no, you need to do it. And I
Yeah.
did it, and that's why I have the job. But you say yes, because I was terrified. That was insecurity. But that is a lesson everybody should learn.
Yeah.
Mackie said it. Everybody we've met said they did it, and they said yes, and they showed up.
And
I
I
love
mean,
that.
there are days, I'm sure you guys all know too,
They're
you're
all
tired,
Pittsburghers.
you're tired,
Oh.
like you're like, oh my gosh, am I really about to do this? Like and it was really hard because when you're in college and you're sacrificing so much, like your friends are partying and this, and it's not that I didn't have
You
that
also
experience.
have class, right?
But yeah, you have class. I was working jobs. Plus this, plus you're trying to manage, like trying to have a social life, and it's not easy to like, say yes to everything when you feel like you're missing out on a lot of things. But I wouldn't trade a single thing I did because it all led me to
Amen.
somewhere.
Amen. It's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those are sacrifices I was willing to make to get where I am.
Well, so after graduation, what happened?
Oh, well, that was
PSU.
COVID, so that was fun.
So wait, so literally 2020, like May, did you graduate in May, I'm guessing?
Yep.
2020? Did you even get to walk?
No.
Oh,
I actually
I'm
don't even
sorry.
think I saw my name roll across the screen because it was like when the computer screens were on and I got
Isn't
tired
that
of watching
terrible?
it. So I was
No.
like, it's fine.
Isn't that terrible?
I'm already like 3 beers deep at this point. I was like, whatever. Like,
Forget it.
I graduated.
I'm
Go
done.
me. I think that was more for my mom anyway. I was like, Mom, when the diploma I don't even know where my diploma is. I was like, Mom, when my diploma comes in, like, you can look at that. Like, good
Oh
for
my
me.
gosh.
But it was really cool. I at least, when I look back, I could say, like, yes, I graduated in COVID, and what a bummer. But I got to cover the Super Bowl that year right before COVID happened, and that was so cool. So there is so much that Penn State gave me that I am so glad to be sitting here today, and I wouldn't be here without that experience. But after graduation was hard. After graduation, because COVID, there's no jobs. I also tell people to do this now too. I was cold emailing people. So I would write up an email, I would attach my resume, my demo reel, everything, and basically just be like, you have no idea who I am, but I'm Hannah Mears, and here's what I can do, and here's what I want to do. I sent it to everywhere I'd ever be interested in.
Everything shut down.
Well, everything shut down because
Beautiful.
I just wanted to keep putting myself out there, and even if they had nothing, maybe they
So
knew
smart.
somebody who had something.
Right,
Or
so
maybe
smart.
it's just like making a connection. And I had a guy from Clemson call me because I emailed the Clemson football people who I was like, they'd be a cool school to work for. I did that with a lot of people, but I just was passionate about certain things. And the guy called me back, and this like reaffirmed, when I was substitute teaching, because I was just trying to make money, and so I was just in school substitute teaching and doing like high school reporting and stuff, and he called me and said, I don't know you, and we don't have a job for you, but I want you to know that if I had any job, I would offer it to you in a heartbeat because I respect what you're doing so much.
That
He's
fired
like-
you up, didn't it?
And I was like, okay, what I'm doing isn't crazy, because do you know the amount of people that probably read that email and never responded or just deleted it?
Of course.
The very few. And then,
But
So-
but going back to being crazy, the most successful people I know have a little bit of crazy.
Yeah,
You
like-
have an obsession about what you want to do, and if you
Yeah.
don't, you may not love it.
right?
Right? Because you have to be a little bit of a psychopath to keep moving forward.
And you
because
have to be willing
that's
to hear
awesome.
no, and you have to be willing to hear not yet, and you have to be willing to hear you're not ready, or
Yeah,
those
'cause-
things. Like rejection
Exactly.
is a big part of this industry. And one of the people I emailed, ironically, was for the MLB Network, and a year later, right, emails me back saying, "Hey, are you still available? We are now looking for remote producers because we need people to help edit these shows, and with COVID we can't have people in here. And so I started working for the MLB Network at one point. That was one of my first jobs outside of, my first real job, I wouldn't say in the industry, was editing video for the MLB Network remotely because I sent an email,
You edited
crazy.
For the MLB Network?
I did. I know.
Remotely?
You didn't know that.
No.
Isn't that crazy?
I did
My
not know
baseball
that
journey. And it was funny because the amount of videos I edited that year was 2021. Rowdy Celez was like hitting bombs all the time. And
yeah, 30
so
that
I
year.
was
Yeah.
interviewing or editing so many
Jeez.
Rowdy Celez videos, and then this year I'm covering him like as a part of the Pirates, which is kind of crazy.
That is crazy.
So many like Rowdy Celez good and things like that, which would mean like
Did they give you like a
good video of
certain-
Rowdy Celez, put it out there.
Do you get like a certain region? How'd they do that?
No, it would just be if I was working on like High Heat, like their show, right?
Are you kidding me?
Whatever they
Wow.
were talking about that day, they would just
Where'd you
say
do it?
this.
Where'd you do it?
Oh, in my living room, by my pool, wherever. I was remote, so I could.
The power of
Unbelievable.
technology,
That is
man.
so wild.
Yeah.
That you,
Yeah,
for the whole season, the 60 games.
yeah, the whole season.
And then after the season, did that lead to something else because of the
Yeah,
MLB?
so interestingly enough, I mean, there's so many risks throughout my journey. I feel like I took so Westmoreland Sports Network was somewhere I worked as well locally, and I have to always give them a shout out. They gave me my first real opportunity, right? Like I was sidelining high school football, but they let me do it the real way. Like they were like, go be like how Aaron Andrews is, and go do your research. And I'm calling high school coaches. I'm calling high school
so
kids,
good.
like, and so they gave me
Yeah,
like
why
that
put
first
handcuffs
start.
on somebody, right? Let 'em go. I
100%.
love
They were
that.
awesome.
That's
And so they
great.
gave me all that experience, all the room to fail, all the room to like figure out who I was. And
Wow.
Preach. Yes.
yeah, and so it was so good because you think you're ready out of college to just take on the world, and like if I would have had this job out of college, I probably would have been fired. Like I would not have been ready.
Right. You think you are, but
You
you're
think
not.
you are, but you're
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
There's so many lessons you have to learn, and so I loved working high school sports too. It was so fulfilling, so wholesome. But yeah, Westmoreland Sports did that. But then I was working substitute teaching to try to make money. Then the MLB Network got me out of that, where I was allowed to actually do something. And then KDK reached out, and I was taking a pay cut, which was scary, from the MLB Network and leaving something that felt really good. But I knew that KDK was a better step in the right direction where I wanted to go just to get my foot in the door in an area I wanted to be in Pittsburgh. And since then, just kind of went from there.
I'm going to drop a hurdleism on you. You got to be an honest self-evaluator.
Yeah.
And I feel like today's age is not. But
Yeah.
like you two, so you guys have some similarities in your story about like the work. Is that just Pittsburgh blood? I feel like everybody I meet just has that knack that's successful, has that knack and the want to. Like I haven't heard I just showed up and it happened, right? I've heard that in Tennessee. I've heard that everywhere. I have not heard that yet here. Is that instilled as a kid? Because the way Pittsburgh.
I mean, Pittsburgh
like,
prides itself.
yeah.
I think
Do you
just
not agree?
This
Like,
region,
I feel like it's
blue collar
region.
towns.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I can't
But
imagine
like the
other
ego,
cities.
you guys, neither one of you guys have ego.
She
you're
does.
Like,
I don't. I don't.
well,
have
exactly. Yeah. But like,
It's unbelievable.
You kind of understand where you fit in.
He hates
I need to take
taking
a
me
step
places.
back to
It's
go
unreal.
forward. All the lessons you're doing it naturally. Is that from your upbringing, or is that from like just natural?
Probably
like,
the work ethic probably comes from our upbringing. You too. You also.
Yeah, I mean, but
And
like
most people, you're right.
communication-wise, in your all's industry, I don't think people understand how cutthroat it is. Very little opportunity, even less than Major League Baseball, if you put it in perspective.
Yeah.
When it comes to how many people, there's only one. There's only one Hannah Mears for the Pirates, right? Not 25 on the roster. So you look at it and you're like that's this small. So you
Yeah.
take all these
going
jobs
back
and do
to,
all this
in
stuff.
terms of Hannah specifically, you basically grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
you
Well,
worked
that's
the
like,
farm.
never mind. Now I get it.
Right?
Now
mean-
she's tossing
Somewhat,
hay.
yeah.
I mean, the hard work definitely. Like my parents are very hardworking people, and they instilled that from day one.
Yeah.
We were never not going to work. I've had a job since
So
I was
it was
12.
from your
yeah,
upbringing.
I've had a job since I was 12. I worked at Idlewild, Idlewild
Oh
and
my
Soap
gosh.
Zone. Oh yeah, I was sharing Dippin' Dots, eating a lot of the Dippin' Dots too.
Unbelievable.
I was doing everything there, and then I was babysitting, I was waitressing. My mom never let us not have a job. I worked at Chick-fil-A, I worked at Gianelli's, a local
But they
restaurant.
did the same thing, right?
They did the same thing, and then we'd be at home, and in the wintertime, we heated our house with a wood burner, and so we had to go out and help our dad split and stack firewood on the weekends, and that's what you had to do. And our mom always had a list of chores, and it was just a good structured way of growing up,
Yeah.
right? Like I at the time, you're miserable, and you're like, why do we have to
Yeah.
do this? But I didn't realize everything that it was teaching you was valuing hard work and appreciating where you came from and everything my parents worked for, and I couldn't have been cheap paying for all of our sports that we wanted to do. And I played travel soccer and everything. And my parents never complained. They were happy that we were happy and successful. And my dad wasn't so happy when I decided not to play soccer in college and take a scholarship and then pivot and go to Penn State. But now he's happy where
I'm going to tell people from now on your dad is Paul Bunyan.
Yeah, oh, perfect.
That's good.
Wood,
Yeah.
He's got his little Babe Blue.
Well, he has the automatic one now, right?
okay.
The handle,
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't.
But for a long time, we didn't, and that's what he did.
That's what other people. He doesn't use that.
Yeah.
Paul Bunyan doesn't use that.
Right? He was.
How you said KDK reached out to you to be a producer for what? Sports Beat?
Well, it was Nightly Sports Call. But
Nightly Sports
just
Call.
their regular sports. They were looking for sports producers.
How did they find? Did you reach out to them first?
No, LinkedIn. I guess I was posting stuff on LinkedIn, social media.
LinkedIn's powerful. I don't get it though.
Yeah, and Jared Barton, who was I just loved all the people I worked with at KDK. Truly, they were just really transformative. I feel like it came at a time where I needed something, and they were just like a family to me. And it was just really cool to work somewhere you grew up watching, just like it is to work with you guys now. Like I grew up watching you guys. It's very cool for me. And so to be with Bob Pompiani, Rich Walsh, Josh Taylor, Jared Barton, Steve Banco, like all these people behind the scenes, and Jeremiah Miller came along the way. It was just so cool to be there with these people. But Jared said he saw my stuff on LinkedIn from Penn State, and he's like, I liked watching it, and they hired me to produce. They knew that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but then I kept producing. I kept putting myself out there for little things. I did some web content like on camera for them, and then eventually was an analyst on the Nightly Sports Call, and that was very cool because it was a very full circle moment of I started here with like a dream, and eventually I would watch people on the Nightly Sports Call thinking I could do that.
So you were on the Nightly Sports Call?
I was on the Nightly Sports Call, yeah.
Huh. Taking calls and talking to people?
Oh yeah, taking calls,
I want to take calls so
analyst,
bad.
yep.
Can we bring that back? Sportsnet calls, just saying, from fans.
Some people aren't always nice, but some people
But that's the fun of it, right? Let them get it out there. Let's talk. Love it.
It was cool. So it was a very full circle thing for me, and I was still producing at the time when I was there. But yeah, it was like a reward almost, like got to be on there. But it was,
How long did you do
cool. Only a few months until I moved on, obviously, to do this stuff. So yeah.
No, but you were doing when you say
2 years at
when
KDK,
you say this stuff.
Like the Pirates.
No, yeah, but you were tell us about all the content stuff you were putting together for not just the Pirates, but hockey, right?
Yeah, you have like you should have a smorgasbord.
So,
yeah, she did.
So I had about 8 jobs before I got this job at once, which is kind of crazy.
At least you didn't run out of fingers.
Yeah,
you do have 10.
right?
Yeah,
I got more to add on there.
You got all your digits.
Freelance is no joke. It is a hard world, but it's also really rewarding at the same time because you can say yes to so many things. I was saying yes to a lot of things for the last 5 years, and you can learn a lot.
Yeah.
So I was doing. I started out. I worked for the Penguins for a while, so I was part-time with the Penguins doing video and editing, and did some on-camera stuff. Then I was able to leave there, and I was doing KDK and sports betting. So I was doing sports betting hosting.
When you started that,
cool.
Did you know anything about?
I knew nothing about sports.
I've
betting.
always wanted to ask somebody that maybe was from the ground level because I don't bet. I don't know a lot.
Yeah.
I was just with somebody that bets a lot, and he was talking to me like I know because everybody assumes. I'm like, this is like Latin.
Oh, yeah, but it's fun.
So like,
I see
she
how
knows
learn the
all that
lingo.
stuff.
She knows the
You do.
language.
Yeah, I
and
do.
stuff.
Going out and hosting a show like I got it. Don't.
Man.
This is your best
Well,
bet
you
today.
know what the worst part about that was? I mean, I worked my butt off to learn it all because I wanted to be as knowledgeable as possible. I wanted to learn. I wanted to know. I wanted to because I was making my own bets. Like nobody was telling me what I had to say. So if I put something out there and people were betting on it and it didn't hit, like that's on me.
Consequences.
So yeah, and so that was hard. But it was so fun because it was. You know when you talk about like adding to your arsenal, right, of things you want to be able to do, sports betting was one of those things that I saw was growing so much.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to do that at some point because I wanted to have that on my resume in case somebody offered me a job one day and one of the things on there said you have to know about sports betting. And if I didn't, you know, I always want to be like one of the most like prepared people for the job or one of the people that they're like, well, she can do all of that now type of thing.
Yeah.
So I wanted that on my resume and it was like the perfect opportunity for it. And everybody there was so cool in helping me learn, but they essentially were like,
did they know?
Here's the gist of it. You know sports and you like researching and you work hard, you'll be fine. And that's sort of where it went. And we just tested it from there. And then
did you say yes first before you like?
Absolutely.
I love it. Yes.
Yeah, of course.
That's one of my like. I have like a list of like.
Have you ever
these
done
are
this
things
before?
that make
Yes.
you successful.
You know what's funny?
You know how to do this? Yes.
Do you
It's
know
my
what-
best position.
Do you know how I even got that? Do you know how I even got that job? Was Colby Armstrong, ironically. How crazy is that?
How'd that happen?
So I was working at the Penguins, and I had done something with Colby, and
Great human, by the way.
we were just talking, and then one of his friends reached out to him and said, hey, do you know of any females who are in the sports industry who would be interested in hosting shows? I have a friend, we're looking like specifically for like X, Y, and Z to like branch into this. And he's like, actually, I do know somebody. And that was one of my first full-time jobs I ever got.
Wow.
Can I ask you guys
Crazy.
about hosting shows? So Rob King says he's like the point guard. He jokes around all the time and says, you know, I was a shooter, but now coming
now
back,
he's a point guard, yeah.
And it's all about passing the ball, put him in the right position.
100%.
How do you guys read the situation? Some people are good at it. I've worked with a lot of people, Sportsnet, Pittsburgh, outside of it. Some are great at it. But like that, I think, is the biggest gift. Even if you don't know what you maybe are talking about, if you can push the conversation and understand the feelings, the emotion, the empathy, everything that's going on, people are going to tune in. How did you guys, because I think both of you guys have a great sense of people. I'm asking both, how did you kind of get that knack? Is it just by conversation? I know you like to go deep into understanding, but like, how do you do that? For people and kids that are figured out.
That's her. That's up her alley.
Well, it's too different
There
because
is nobody better than transitioning or adding in funny things or underlying things than Greg Brown.
Completely agree.
He is
But think about that.
fantastic to listen to.
One of the reasons that's true is because Hannah Mears is so prepared.
But-
Oh, okay.
Now,
listen,
that's
hold
the
on.
truth, by the
Until
way.
you do
because
a-
I know what you're doing ahead of time, and there's some people that just leave you cold, and you're not. Where'd
neither
that
one
come
of them
from?
are going to actually answer my question because they don't like talking about themselves. But what I'm saying is, you're from a different age. Newspapers,
The Stone Age,
right?
yeah.
You had to
Yeah.
do research
Ice Age,
completely.
yeah.
You had to
Chipping
literally.
away on the rock.
That's what I did.
Right,
I
it's
chipped
true.
away on a stone. Yeah.
She's an enigma in her age group that, you know, they think they know because of social media, because of understanding what they see. But she does it the old school way too. And I'm trying to, you know, understand what makes someone tick and the understanding of like, I want to understand that person so I can lead
Well, I think
them
I
to
think,
great
I think
content.
for Hannah, it seems to me, and she already mentioned it, it seems to me that she loves finding stories.
Yeah.
That's her passion, right? Wouldn't you
That's
say
the
that?
producer in you,
And
right?
I also 100%. I think the biggest thing for that, and even when I watch shows and what you see, it's someone who's just really authentic in themselves. And I think that's anything in being on camera is because, you know, when people watch you, they know they're going to get this certain type of energy and fun. When they watch Greg Brown, my mom always says it, and my mom is, let me just put it this way, she is not someone who's going to sit down and watch a sporting event just because. Like, she's watching because I'm on there, or she likes, you know, the Stanley Cup and rooting for the Penguins or watching a Steeler game. She's not like actively listening and watching, whereas my dad's listening to every word that Greg Brown's saying, right?
Yeah.
Or that you're saying, and then he's going and telling all his friends what you said.
And that's that's
right.
literally the
Like,
market in a nutshell.
100%. But what makes people good is that you're so easy to listen to because you don't overthink it. He doesn't overanalyze it. He just tells you what's going on, but is able to have a conversation, but like knows when to pause, knows when to make a moment. And I think that's truly people who just aren't afraid to be themselves, because there are so many people who will watch something and think you have to be perfect and structured, and people like to watch it knowing you're human. And truthfully, yeah, sometimes I don't know how I'm going to transition or what's going to happen, or, you know, we were talking to, I guess a good example of this, if people are listening, is I was hosting hockey the other day, and Jay Caulfield said something about, he was really specific. We were talking about Ricard Raquel took out this offseason, worked really hard. Haley Hunter told a phenomenal story about he decided to take away the sweet with his coffee in the morning, but it's a really big tradition in his culture to have a sweet with your coffee in the morning. But this season, you know,
Like a dessert?
yeah, but
A sweet?
he wanted to come into this season. He was 0 for 17 in scoring in games last year, and he wanted to come in this year and make an impact right away. And he did. It worked, whatever he did, but he took that sweet away. So we were talking about it, and Jay had said, I don't know if I could take away like my chocolate cream-filled Krispy Kreme donut. And I stopped and I said, Jay, that was really specific. Like, it wasn't
That
just
is
like
super.
it wasn't like, oh, I wish I could just take away, you know, my sweet in the morning. It was like my Krispy Kreme, this, and I was
We
like,
should get him a hot sign.
and you know what? I wasn't afraid to just be like, well, wait a second. Like, before we go to anything else, that was way too specific. Like, and he told us this great story that during COVID, like, he would go and like that was the one donut he found and he liked, and now he's like obsessed with it. He talks about it all the time. But it was just, you know, it's things like that that make I think, and I don't think I'm a
You took
great
a really
host.
strong man
Yeah,
and
right.
made him real.
And then I made him laugh.
Yeah.
And people
Yeah,
talk about
that's
Jay
awesome.
not laughing all the time. And I was like,
Wow.
but
Yeah,
that's
it's
the thing.
terrifying.
You bring
It's
out the
terrifying.
human in other people too.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm great at it, right? This was my first time like hosting. I think there's so much more I could learn. But like someone like Laura Rutledge is so good at it. She does
Amazing.
it
I play
on
with-
ESPN
I know
all the
them.
time.
They're
She's
great people.
fantastic. Like, but she's not afraid to be herself, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing. You're never gonna be someone else. But if you can make other people feel comfortable around you, that's the biggest thing, right? As soon as you start talking, someone's gonna feel your energy. Like if you're nervous, they're gonna be
That's
nervous.
right.
And so I think I think Greg does so good at that. You're not afraid to be yourself. We know that. Like we know if we send it to Fort, we're like, wait, maybe we should make sure we filter this first because he's gonna run with it. Whatever
is.
told
He's
you,
running.
He's committed
What
to
you see,
it.
and
What
and
you
I'll
see
say
is
this:
what you get.
nailed.
Yeah.
I didn't know where you're gonna go, but you nailed what I believe with all my heart is be who you are. Like you're gonna get everything I have, no matter if it's on camera or off camera. That's who I am, and I believe both you guys are the same way. And I think that's incredible because when I got into this, I got it some advice, and I got beat up. The fans didn't like it, and I was like, "What am I doing wrong?" My wife goes, "You're not you. Stop it." And the quote, and I wanted to share this, is all leading to this. Walt Emerson, right?
Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Yep. Go ahead, Brownie. You told me this, and I'll never
Well,
ever leave
About
anything.
enthusiasm.
Yep.
Nothing great ever happens without enthusiasm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
whether we win, lose, draw, there's something in every single game and every single moment that you can look at and say, "Man, that was cool."
Well, see, I think
Right?
again, this is this show. By the way, I'm glad you're watching this. This mutual society that we have
Yeah.
here, where we're applauding each other and patting each other on the
It's
back.
called a dig me session, Brownie.
But I do think, now I'll pass it on to Hannah and Fort.
They can't do it, folks.
That it is enthusiasm, and I know Hannah believes this. And Fort, you're relatively new to the business, but I think you wore it on your sleeve when you played. I could see it. But just enthusiasm for living in what you do comes natural.
Yeah.
And,
It's contagious
and nobody
too, right?
wants to watch or listen to anything if they don't think you're into it.
Right.
Like, why in the world would I waste my time if they're miserable? And
Yeah.
I really think she's unbelievable. Hannah Mears is unbelievable. And I don't know how long we're going to have her here. We're lucky, but we've lucked. I talked about Bob Walk, and we lucked out with Bob Walk because I think he's one of the best color analysts
100%.
in sports.
Another
And
person that was not
Rock,
afraid
too.
to be themselves.
That's right.
Like we have a really good group of people
Yeah, we're
who
lucky.
aren't afraid to be who they are, and I think
Yeah.
that's just the best part of it, right? That's what makes people really good. I think some of the best broadcasters I know is people who aren't afraid to be themselves, and I think that's really special. But also Pittsburgh people love that because
That's true.
there's certain markets, right, who Pittsburgh people more than anything would be like, oh, they're being fake or they're this. Like, if you're authentically yourself, Pittsburgh people feel like you're their friend
Well,
because
that's
they
funny
are
you say
these
that.
blue-collar, hardworking
Because
people,
you
right?
talk about like your mentor, one of mine is Mike Lang, of course, and Mike helped
Mike
me
Lang.
get the job.
Very cool.
And that's one of the things. I was so frustrated early on because I was getting people kind of saying like, "What's he doing?
I love
why
this
are people
story.
so excited about the Pirates?" And
And that's the one we get that bugaboo a lot.
yeah, like
Oh, you
they're
hometowners.
terrible. Like
It's
that
like-
doesn't make sense to me. You're not enthusiastic about your sports team because they're winning or losing.
Yeah,
You just
you
love
love
the
your team.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyhow, he said that. He said, "I'm going to give you a couple pieces of advice." He did, and one of the things is don't ever change who you are because, especially you talk about Pittsburgh, this town will spot a phony in a second.
And what's the
So
years?
true.
What's the years? This is my favorite. Listen to this.
Oh, well,
this
that-
is to a T correct in every single way.
Now, this won't apply to Hannah because she's been doing it for long. But for me, I had been in town for a while, then went to Buffalo, and then I came back, and I thought instantaneously people would, heck, Pittsburgh guy.
The Brownie's back.
Oh,
Yeah.
hey, yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I wasn't feeling it the first couple of years. I was getting frustrated. Wow, people don't seem to really like me like they should. And I was talking to him about that, and he goes, "You got to give it 5 years, kid." And he goes, "At 5 years, you will not believe. If you put 5 years in Pittsburgh, they'll accept you." And almost to the day, it was like, wow. 5 years in, they accepted me. And you felt that way too about
I moved here at 5 years.
in 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, every year I was thinking about taking this job, and he said, "You do not give up now." And he told me that story, and literally we bought a house within 6 months because I felt like the fan base always accepted me like a Pittsburgher just because my work ethic or whatever, and I'll never forget that as a player. But it was different. This is my biggest fear. Like
TV?
biggest fear as a kid. Yeah, talking in front of people. I mess up my words. I lose my thought.
Your wife was telling us that the other day,
Yeah,
which is crazy. Haley and I were like, "There's no way, like no way."
It was a scare, and then Dan Potash gave me some advice. Rob King, Brownie's been the best, but like same as you, it's like I had people say no, and when he said that to me, I'm like, you're right. I love this city. I love that team. I want to see something great. I don't need to go further right now. Let's see this out, and we bought a house, and it was literally 5 years. I think you told me year 4, and I ended up doing it year 5.
One more year, you felt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I was
I
thinking
never-
about maybe taking another position. So
I never take it for granted that I get to be in Pittsburgh, and yes, in my hometown, and I'm blessed to be with my family, but I love Pittsburgh, and I
Yeah.
love what they're
Yeah.
about, and I
Yeah.
love the sports teams, and I love the passion, and there's
It's
just
different.
like, you take pride in covering
Yeah.
a Pittsburgh team. I don't care how many wins or losses, I take pride in covering a Pittsburgh team because there is a certain grit, a certain feel, and a certain history, right? I feel like every single player that came to Pittsburgh this year, someone different said the history here. Martin Perez said it instantaneously. He was just wanted to be a part of Pittsburgh for a
will
little
you
bit.
say that
We
one more
talked to-
time, please?
About the history.
Just
Embrace the
just for
history.
the people listening out there.
Like the history.
The what?
The
Yeah.
history.
We
the
should-
rich
what? The
history?
history
Yeah.
in Pittsburgh. And it's so true because it's every single player that comes to Pittsburgh. Like Rowdy Celeste said the same thing. It's the rich history here. And they all know it. They're aware of it. And they're proud of it, and they're proud to put on a uniform because of it. IKF said the same thing. So it's just weird how that was the one common denominator between everybody was the history in Pittsburgh and the fans and the passion, and they're excited to play for a team like that because it's not like that everywhere.
Yeah,
and you more than anyone probably know that.
I didn't, and then you meet Brian Lasik. You meet the guys over at the office that dig into this with a passion you don't even understand. They spend 40 hours, 50 hours for a minute to make this perfect clip to go into a show to tell when Sid scored his first goal and his mom was in the stands, whatever it is. But the passion behind it, you can't fake that. And you talking about be who you are. If you're trying to keep up some persona, at some point that realness is going to come out. And I think being yourself, good, bad, or indifferent, you can grow that way. If you're trying to be somebody you're not, you can't grow because you're always trying to keep up with what you're trying to be.
Yeah, it shows too.
Yeah, it really does.
People
And it's been a blessing.
People know.
Yeah, they know.
Like you and Haley have been an absolute phenomenal addition
Oh, thank
to
you.
every single thing over there. We have a great team. I've seen a lot of people leave over the last 7 years, but you guys have been phenomenal. And Haley walked in and hosted a show, which you just did hockey first time, and nobody could even tell because you're thinking about the people right next to you. And I always think about if you can serve the people next to you that you work with and love, you always win. And I feel like we have a group, and in Pittsburgh in general, going back to rich history, everything is about loving on that next person. And I don't know why we don't
every single
embrace
one of
that.
you, I could explain to somebody when they ask like who they are. I could explain your personality genuinely because that's who you are on camera. And so people
And
always
off,
ask me
right?
like,
It's
"Oh, is
crazy.
Greg? Is Greg Brown exactly what he seems like?" I'm like, "Yeah, and more, like
that's
better,
nice.
but like exactly what you'd want those people to be." It's like when you meet your heroes, they're exactly who you want them to be, right? And that's like the biggest compliment ever is knowing you're a kind person, you're a good person, but you're also exactly how you're talking to the fan base is how you talk to your friends, and that's what people want to see, and that's what Pittsburghers appreciate.
And you're a word wizard. I got
Well, I tell you what,
Always.
I could really listen to this for another. In fact, if you enjoyed this edition of the Mutual Admiration Society with Hannah Mears, this episode, you'll love the next one on Hold My Cutter.